This meeting calls to order. The public is able to attend the meeting in person, or to watch the meeting streaming on the library's YouTube channel. And a recording is made available after the meeting at the city's website. Is there anyone from the community here that would like to speak to the board? All right, okay. Roll call. Tim?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Dee?
Here.
Angela?
Here.
Reese?
Present.
And Nick is here. Updates and reports, beginning with the foundation.
Hi, I'm Brenda Cardiff. I'm the Executive Director of the Rochester Public Library Foundation. Our update is that we're working on our events that are coming up this fall. Our big one is, WIT is in January, January 25th, 2025. Put it on your calendar, please. We've got, as of today, I have all asks out to sponsors from last year. So some of them are trickling in, so that's wonderful. And let us know if you know of any business that would like to support the library and get a little exposure by being a sponsor for our fundraiser. Summer Sprouts received a surprise extra last donation from Flaskers. So now we've got $13,500 for the summer, so that's a nice little campaign. We will be reviewing the library's wish list at our next meeting, and then I'll update you. I don't think there'll be a lot of controversy, so, but it'll be fun to see what all the departments are looking for. And our next big event is our holiday shopping auction. I know I keep on asking, and people are getting back to me and telling me things that they would like to donate or baskets they'd like to put together. So you can see up on the screen some of the fun things we have so far. And they'll be expanded. We have tickets to the Guthrie, something from Autonomy Tattoo, a leaf blower, which I think is supposed to be great with pickleball, and other things keep on trickling in. So please let me know. We have, experiences, gift cards, anything like that would be welcome. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Next is the Friends.
Hi, I'm Val Kalashewski, President of Friends, and this month I wanted to highlight our participation in the program called Operation Paperback. It's a program which coordinates gently used books being sent to American troops, veterans, and their families. And we cover the shipping cost of mailing packages. We budget up to $250, and we have one person who coordinates watching the wish lists and trying to identify books that we might have in our inventory, especially after our auditorium sales. And she boxes those up and sends them off. We recently received a couple of thank you letters. I identified the organizations in your packets. And a quote from one of them is, "Your generosity will make an immediate difference in the lives of our veterans and will improve their spirit during their time with us." This was a VA hospital and clinic. And I just wanted to say that we're gratified to know that we are able to repurpose, Brenda's word, repurpose some of our excess donations to support soldiers either far from home or those who have returned from their service. Also, our membership drive kicks off in September, so members will be receiving letters in the mail, and everybody who volunteers at the library is a Friends volunteer, so all of you as volunteers will be receiving letters, and the list of the discounts available to you as Friends members is in your packet. Also, we are going to be having 2 to 3 members on our board retiring at the end of this year. And so we are looking for new members to replace them. And we are also in need of more bookstore volunteers. So help us spread the word. Any questions for Friends?
All right, thank you. Selco.
Yeah, Teresa Waldoff, and the only thing I have is that as the Rochester Library representative, I have to serve also on CELCO committees. So for this coming year, I'm on the nominations committee, and then I'm also the CELCO Foundation Board representative for CELCO. So that's how we're doing this year. Yep, and that's it.
All right, executive committee update and planning committee. Executive committee met on August 2nd, and pretty much the result was the agenda that you see before yourself. I don't think there's anything to add at the moment. The planning committee was primarily meeting with members of the MSR consulting committee, which, as you all know, we hired. And we reviewed kind of the foundational basic things that we need to start off with, including the program schedule. And an important part of that also was the lines of communication. And we want to make sure that we're using the consultant's time as well as we can. So rather than pepper members of the consulting team with various questions, steering committee members will be giving questions to the core team. The core team will give them to the consultants. The only thing that we need to work out, and I'm sure we can, is to make sure that whoever on the steering committee asks the questions get answers, and that they're conveyed to the consultants at the best time, and that the answer comes back to the steering committee and the asker. Also, we need to figure out how the staff committee, which includes the Friends and the Foundation, will be able to communicate their questions and receive answers, probably in the same manner that the steering committee questions will be handled. And I think much of this will become clearer as we move forward and as we begin to get more substance, more questions, and responses will be coming out. And I think we're going to have a nice, constructive dialogue. On September 5th, the MSR consultants will be here personally.
Yes.
Yes. And we're going to meet with them from 10 to 1, and then they will be taken around the library as a tour so that they have a better idea. I assume that some have already have been here, but so we can see what their initial questions and concerns are. Do you have anything?
Yeah, we did get to touch base with them to see a little more built-out calendar and have conversations, which we'll go over with the steering committee on that September 5th meeting. We talked just very initially about some placeholders and dates for things like engagement activities. So those things, again, you'll get more information, and we'll have a more robust update at the September meeting because, of course, we'll have more of a deeper meeting early September. And anything else that I'm forgetting?
Yeah, I think the core team met with MSR just prior to this meeting, and we established our first engagement day that will include engagement with staff from 8:30 to 9:30. This is on September 25th, which is a Wednesday. We're also looking to set up some meetings with the Friends and Foundation, both the leadership teams as well as a larger group, to start some initial engagement activities. And we're also planning to have a steering committee, and every subcommittee that we've created as a result of this. We're going to hash out more of those details on the 5th, but we wanted to get that first big engagement activity on the 29th. They're going to be going to the Wednesday farmers market that night. We are having community election forums that night, and they're gonna be in the lobby to, capture some of the folks that come and go, with some initial, engagement activities.
And also in addition to that, the work that Kim's been scheduling and working on, Perna and her team is also getting the details that MSR will need as far as FTE, budget, financial pieces, and other statistical information that they'll need for their research into our library, so.
What was the date in September for the staff meeting? 20?
September 25th.
25th.
So Wednesday, the 25th. And they're gonna be here a full day, starting 8:30 in the morning, going until the evening.
They're gonna be here.
They're gonna be here,
Tracy and Kate.
and Holly, yeah.
Okay. So it is starting. Okay, moving on, consent agenda, items 6A through 6E can be voted on in a block. But Tracy, you said there was a amendment to the minutes?
Yes, I think it was, item under order of agenda, item 4. It says that it's a unanimous approval of that, and I was not at that meeting, and it has my name listed as an I, so need to remove me from that. But I'm also curious because there was a couple of other people that were absent that day, and I don't know if they're listed there or not. But there was a quorum.
Oh, there was a quorum.
Yeah. Are you saying you think they're listed? as
Yeah, because they're
attending?
also
Okay.
listed as
Okay,
not,
got you.
and I wasn't there.
Okay.
Okay, well, then we need to fix it. All right, can I have a motion to approve the block 6A through 6E with the amendments as presented?
I don't think an amendment.
Yeah, I don't think you
No,
can actually
we
do
can-
that.
I think we can consent on.
You can just consent on
B
6B
through
through
E.
E.
So my motion is
Yeah.
that we approve B through E as our
As
consent
presented.
items.
Okay, and then when we make those changes, those corrections,
We'll
then,
bring
You
back.
can,
We can
you
vote on that one
vote on that,
separately.
you just can't vote it as part of the consent. agenda.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Because it was pulled out.
Right.
All right, can I
So
have a
B
motion
through
to,
E.
Who made the original consent? Did we make a consent agenda motion before we started the discussion? No, we should have.
Yeah.
But, okay, so
So on the consent
you make
agenda,
a
B through
motion to
E.
do B, E, I'll second that, and you're ready to go.
okay, so that's a motion to approve the consent agenda,
B through E.
and you second.
All in favor, yeah, all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then 6A, the minutes
As amended.
as amended. Could I have a motion to approve that as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to reports and recommendations, roles and responsibilities policy. Karen, actually Karen is almost all the way down the line here.
Oh, no, I'll be sharing. We're
Well,
sharing.
no,
So last month, we approved a slate of policies, policy updates. And this, essentially, the policy is very similar, where the approval was with a city attorney approval. And he signed off on all of them, made one suggestion on this policy to be in line with other city policies and language used instead of affirmative action using the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. So that is the only change.
Does that require a report or is it information?
I believe it does require a revote, right?
yes. Does it have, what's our process on policies? Do they have to be, is it a two-step or a one-step process?
One step.
Then just, yeah, I would move that we approve it as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 8A, safety and security specialist update.
Yes, and we have Jeremiah, who will be here to tell us about our safety security specialist pilot, and Brandon.
Yes, so basically, we have this role that we've created. We've got a 4-month update here, really to introduce Brandon to you. So we wanted to bring Brandon in and give him a chance to just kind of introduce himself.
Hey, nice to meet you all. I'm Brandon. I've been in the role for about 4 months, and it's been a little bit eye-opening, but with my background, I have a wide variety of experiences, and I've met a lot of people, so I'm very good at de-escalation and just helping people get what they need from us, because we have a plethora of resources.
Yeah, and just to kind of walk through, obviously 4 months is just not a ton of time to collect some data, but we wanted to give you something. So looking at Q1 to Q2, with a note that Brandon started officially in May, so that is Q2, so you're already kind of in there. But looking at, calls that we've had to make to the police, number of incidents, and then the welcoming shift. Now, obviously, lots of factors here, so we can't say true one-to-one, as amazing as having Brandon here, that he has affected these numbers, but wanted to just share some of that data, some of those collection points that we do have, and really the most important thing has been how staff have felt having Brandon here. So just some comments from staff. Brandon responds promptly to incidents, often showing up before we ask him to. This has decreased instances of subpar customer service caused by interruptions to our workflow. Another one, Brandon is able to handle issues right away as they begin, particularly when the desk is busy. Having someone able to work with patrons before things escalate helps to keep the library a safe space. Also, it stops disruptions to service spots as we do not have to stop service in order to handle unruly patrons. And finally, we were busy on the desk one evening when a customer was displaying disruptive behavior. Brandon showed up before we even asked for him and approached the customer in a kind and down-to-earth manner. I was able to continue helping a customer. So just that comfort of having Brandon around, having somebody dedicated that can go integrate with folks, that can check on some of our regulars and really establish that relationship with the community has been seen through staff being able to then focus and prioritize the customers or the tasks at hand without having to pull them away like we've had to in the past. So again, it's harder to show in a short time data points, but I think some of these basically reflections from staff really go a long way to show just how important it's been to have Brandon and how appreciated we all are to have him here to handle some of these situations. Any questions?
I was just wondering, quarter-wise in the past, is there any discernible pattern about when there are more incidents than in other quarters? Like in the winter, are there more incidents?
Typically, yes, and that's why that data point's not super great because we do typically see less incidents in the library as we get into summer months. But really, from a 4-month perspective, there's really not any great data at all that we can lean on.
Okay.
I have a question, and I can ask you directly. You're being scheduled like in times when there are patterns of...
Yeah, that is the effort, to schedule me when things are happening.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 8B, library organizational structure.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide some updates that we have here with our staffing. So next slide. We really have this very unique opportunity. We had a teammate that announced an upcoming retirement, which I, for many years, thought about our structure. I mean, when you're new to an organization, you think about your structure, you think about how things are. This kind of spurred me into faster thinking, I think. Looking at other city departments, there are often assistants, and we've had those conversations here in the library. Even as our administrative team for years have had a question: should we have an assistant? Do we need assistants? I met with our HR business rep and talked through a lot of this. And he actually planted that idea of 2 assistants in my head that hadn't been there before. But the city has really adopted this high-performance organization model of continuous learning and growth and change and being nimble, being, I guess, really preparing teams for change and for innovation. We know that with our library study, we're gonna have recommendations and we're gonna need the ability to activate those recommendations. We have an amazing group of divisional managers who do really amazing things, and really, quite honestly, have very full roles. And adding an additional, take this piece on based on results of this study is a really big ask for our very strapped team. So I selected 2 people to ask to take on those things and some of that burden, because I know it's also something that to do really well, it takes more than one person doing that. And then we had some unanticipated funding in our full-time budget because of some leave without pay, some positions that were open longer than we anticipated. And so that, again, all led to this opportunity. If you look at, again, the other city departments, they've added or looked at impact teams and an impact team model. The library, for example, is part of the community enrichment team, impact team for the city. It means that we still have, our departmental individuality, similar to the divisions within the library having that individuality, but there really is a desire, cross-organization desire, to be more intentionally focused on working together and breaking down silos. So the community enrichment team is myself, the Parks and Recreation, music, DEI, and communications, all really lumped in that kind of bucket of sometimes there's just this automatic synergy that it's harder to happen when we're separated and very, very siloed. So that's where this whole concept really originated from, is looking at other departments and how they operate. There are some libraries in the next slide that have a director, or have a director and senior managers, or have these deputy director roles. Next slide. So what we did is we're adding this library direction team to take on some of these things and be prepared to take on things that are going to come from the library study, and really kind of bucketing our folks to, again, encourage that synergy and that cross collaboration while also respecting the individuality of those different teams. Director of Operations, Perna, who has been just instrumental in every financial decision that we have made. Every time I have a budget meeting with our city administrator, has made me fully prepared. Without Perna's knowledge and expertise in the financial space, we would really be struggling. We have, music, for example, lost a person. They have a very small department and lost a person, and we've been able to maintain our staffing levels, or right now we're poised to add another teammate, which is not true of all departments across the city. In the public services side, Kim has loads of institutional knowledge, and Kim has announced that that they're retiring in September of next year, which is a very long window, and is willing to be in this very squishy space of what this role could look like, especially based on the study. You'll recall that Kim is in charge of reader services, but also has the bookmobile arm. We know that library, bookmobile, digital services, all of those things are being explored with this study. We're keeping it very broad and open-ended, and there could be some squishiness in this role. And so it really does affect our administrative team, and we've acknowledged that, and it's a change, and it's a big change, and we're working through that. But they've been really fantastic about, okay, how do we get more feedback? How do we engage? How do we ask questions? Have asked me tough questions. And then it will also affect our reader services team. Because another component is, we know we need to do some kind of succession planning. Reader services in the library is the only division that has not had a librarian 2 in the division. And so we are adding, and not adding, but changing vacating a librarian 1 role to have a librarian 2 role. This will allow Kim to start doing some of that knowledge transfer, and as we kind of explore, what that squishiness may or may not be moving forward with our public services. To see the whole chart, which is a lot, this is really, again, meant to still honor, our youth services folks are the youth services experts. So it doesn't mean that, Kim is all of a sudden going to be the expert in youth services. Kim knows that they are not the expert in youth services. It doesn't mean that Perna's going to be doing cataloging. But it does mean that they are really charged with reducing some of the silos that we've had across the organization, improving some communication, looking for opportunities for efficiencies, process improvements, streamlining some of our processes. And then the next slide, it really isn't a new idea. There has been an assistant years ago. I am super grateful that that position was converted into a communications position, because that is how I started here at the library in 2015. And so super grateful that that was removed so that the communications role could be added. We'd had conversations at our administrative team even pre-pandemic. And I think, for me, during the pandemic, it really heightened the times where Audrey was pulled away on city business. It was really hard not having a second in command. Having a shared anybody on the administrative team could be second in command. Sometimes could be problematic. It's hard to say who's responsible and who is, it could create not necessarily an opportunity for some second in command. The JEDI process really highlighted some of the struggles, and you'll see that when we get to the JEDI audit and some concerns. And it will really be myself and Kim and Perna that really are taking ownership of making sure that those initiatives and projects and the feedback that we got from staff gets addressed and implemented. And again, Kim will be retiring, so kind of planning through that, being ready for the results of the study. And then, again, last reason is the budget does allow for these changes to happen this year. Next slide. These are the top priorities that we're going to be looking at. First is, we know that we have the part-time bucket is a completely different, those are 2 buckets. I think you see that in the monthly budget report. And really looking at how we're going to be addressing that and the workloads across the library, and bring recommendations to the board if necessary. Looking at our cardholder privileges, as we still continue to have more increased demand on our digital collection. We've had some conversations about, and we're not the only library that has had these conversations. People are using our digital. In Minnesota, we love to share materials. When we share, so in the state of Minnesota, anybody can walk into another Minnesota library and you can use your library card basically anywhere and get materials. It's harder to do that when you live far away. With digital, it's super easy to do. So we're talking about, is there anything we need to do and change in our permissions for library card holders, so that we can make sure that folks locally are prioritized in accessing our collections. Still have a lot of work to do with IT integration and facilities integration, and then all of these major projects are the things that we'll be focusing on in this first year. Next slide, and then questions.
Exciting changes.
I'm sorry, did you hear that?
Well, I just said it's exciting
Oh.
to have the opportunity to make these changes.
So, my question is regarding posting of new jobs. So these are new roles that are being created. Is there a requirement in the city to post roles or?
We're glad that you brought that up. So yes, this is, in the case of the librarian two, we are vacating a librarian one position. So that one is posted, that one is an open position to anyone, internal post. Any librarian, anybody with an MLIS degree can apply for that role. For the deputy positions, these were reclassifications of existing positions. So their work doesn't go away. They're still, some of the reader services work will be slowly passed off to the librarian too, but there is a big chunk of Kim's role that still stays and duties are added on, so it's a reclassification. Same with Perna's role as well. Yeah, yeah, thank you for asking that question.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Item 8C, library digitization project, that's Brian?
Yes.
Okay, I'm standing with Jeremiah's ex. I'm Brian Lind, I'm the librarian too in reference, and I just wanted to give you guys kind of an update of what we have digitally and kind of where we're going with that. So let's go to the first slide here. So this, if you haven't gone to our Rochester Digital History site, there's a shortcut, rplmn.org/history. You can see really cool things like old yearbooks. We have a lot of digital yearbooks that you can go look at. We have a couple of them. We don't actually have a physical one. We borrowed one from somebody, so there's some things on this digital site that we don't actually have in the library. You can also look at old city directories. If you don't know what a city directory is, it's like a phone book, but it has more information. Oftentimes you can look up by phone number or by address. They also will often have the occupation of the person. So because in old-timey days, that was like a thing that happened. Now we call it creepy, if that was actually in the phone book, but now we call it a great historical resource. So those are kind of fun to look through there. Go ahead and hit our next slide. So credit where credit's due. Susan Hansen, a retired reference librarian here, is the one who really got the ball rolling with these digital preservation projects all across the library. She deserves so much credit. We're so indebted to the work that she's done. She's the one who put together, with our IT folks, this digital site that we've been working on and adding things to. She also had the foresight when the Rochester Post-Bulletin moved from downtown to the new location. They were going to toss all their archives. Susan got in there and was able to secure those for us at the library, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And also, we just really want to focus on a lot of institutional history. One example is that we have a whole bunch of old library scrapbooks that have a whole bunch of pictures throughout the ages of stories about the library and different things, and it's really fun to have those digitized and to be able to share those with folks. Next one. So, Rochester newspapers on microfilm. Right now, we have the newspapers on microfilm going back to 1858. Pretty old. Nobody was around in here when that happened. Microfilm is still the standard for digital preservation of things like this. However, it has caught up a little bit with the digital age. It used to be we had to take the newspapers, we had a separate subscription for the Post-Bulletin. I mean, you'd take that newspaper, set it aside, nobody could check it out. We'd have to send it to get scanned, and then they would come back with the microfilm for us. Not anymore. Now, the Post-Bulletin has the PDFs of all their newspapers. And also, it helps a lot because now they only publish 2 days a week. However, they put out a PDF every single day of the week to catch those other stories. So our staff, with permission from the Post-Bulletin, downloads those PDFs, and those get sent. And it's much clearer, it's much better than trying to scan a big newspaper that might bleed through or whatnot. So that's really been a nice advance. We have looked in the past at the expense of digitizing all of our microfilm. It's really expensive and not kind of a thing. But there are some promising things coming up, which I'll show you on the next slide here. Minnesota Historical Society, thank you. They actually have digitized a lot of our early newspapers. You can go there for free, and we have a link on our website to it. Most of the newspapers that are on this site are things that we own in microfilm. The Historical Society has digitized a small amount of kind of newspapers. Back in the olden days, there were like a ton of different little newspapers here and there, sometimes go out once a week. Most of them, both of us have. There are some that are on this website that are not in our collection. We have a few in our collection that are not on this website too. So it's really cool. The thing that's nice about this is it's searchable. Now, it's not searchable in the way the librarians would like it to be searchable, where everybody's gone through and picked all the names and pulls it, but it's searched by keyword. So if you type in Mayo Clinic, you'll get everything that has Mayo Clinic, and it'll be highlighted. But this is a huge improvement over just having things in the microfilm cases, because you don't know, you can't search those. So this is actually very cool. You can also search this by date. So if you have a particular date, you can go to Rochester newspapers, this date, it'll show you those newspapers for that date. Next slide. So partnerships. So we've been working with the Post Bulletin, both with Jeff Peters and Steve Lang, and also with Krista Lewis, who is the archivist at the Rochester History Center. History Center, Olmsted County. I could just read this. And they've been really wonderful working with us. When we got the Post Bulletin archives, we went through and we digitized a bunch of things. And we've also been working, and some of it is such a massive, massive project. And some of it was, I think, a priority for us, and some of it was not. So that's where we've kind of worked with the History Center and the Post Bulletin to put the things kind of in the right places. Go ahead to the next slide here. So we basically had three big types of things that we got from the Post Bulletin archives. Mugshots, so those are just pictures, photographs of people. Most of the time the Post Bulletin would actually shoot those themselves. Their photographers would do it. Occasionally you would have ones where somebody would submit their, the generic photo they got from whatever their place of employment was. Those we have digitized all of them. And we're in the process right now of getting those up. We have to figure out how we want to put them on the archive, but those are all digitized, so we're really excited about that. Clippings, back in the old-timey days before computers, what they would do with the newspapers, they would clip out articles about a particular thing and put them in an envelope and just write the name on there. It's very like the old card catalog, for those of you old enough to do that. So there were a bunch of clippings that we had here. And that was just kind of, one thing, it is redundant with all the articles that we have in our microfilm, they're all there. These clippings were kind of a cool way to get things together quickly, but digitization of them was just kind of overwhelming and more than we could do. So actually the Historical Society and the Post Bulletin have taken back those. The Post Bulletin kind of cherry-picked some of the articles and some of the topics that they think they'll be using in their articles, and then Olmsted County has the rest of it. So they are working on digitizing those. So the digitization is still happening, just not here at the library. And then the negatives were probably the one that, while they're very cool, they basically were the rolls of film. Like if they would do a photo shoot, they would have a bunch of rolls of film, and they'd only use one of those pictures. So they actually had the negatives, the original negatives from that. So that was not as interesting as some of these other things to us. And those are, the Post Bulletin now has those back. Next slide. So current priorities. Oh, one thing I want to point out to these are board minutes from 100 years ago, from 1924. And probably the person who was the equivalent of the director here, Margaret Hickman, salary $175 a month. If you do the math, she got $2,100 a year. So, and we also paid 25 cents for pamphlets from the American Library Association. So our priorities for so right now we're going to adding the mugshots is kind of our top priority. We're working through that. We're always adding yearbooks, city directories as we get new ones. City directories we're pretty good at. Yearbooks, every once in a while a new one will trickle in that we don't have. We like to have multiple copies of them, so it makes it easier to scan them. If we have like an archival copy and one that we can actually a little bit destroy, but it makes a better scan. We only do that if we have multiples. We also have a lot of local history things in our archives, some old newsletters from things that aren't around anymore. They're kind of just odds and sods of things around, but it'd be really fun to digitize those and have people be able to look for them. They're things you're not going to be able to find really anywhere else. And some newspapers, some like small run newspapers, so we'd like to digitize those as we were able to do that. And library board minutes, the historic ones are on there. I got this from the digital history website, so the historic ones are there. The new format of the ones we have now on there with all the links and everything is a little bit trickier for the current ones, but fortunately the city has them up there anyway. And next one here. So volunteering. So like I said, the clippings are being digitized at the History Center. We're very excited that very soon we will have our new volunteer coordinator. So we will look for different opportunities and things to do at that point. So I think we're on questions. So you have questions, and Sarah and I can answer any questions that you might have.
I think they used to call them vertical files.
That was the pamphlet files.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the clip files, actually that's the library equivalent of the clip files.
Right, and then the newspapers had their morgue.
Yes, they did.
which they must have thrown away a long time ago.
Yeah, well, this was what they had. I mean, these were the clippings. I don't know if the morgue is separate from clippings or not. I know like when they had
So
obituaries.
the morgue would have ended up at the Historical Society.
It is now, yes.
It is, from
Yes,
here.
yes,
From the
except for the
Post
ones they cherry picked from the Post Bulletin.
Okay.
Nice.
Can I just make a comment? I think this is fantastic, and I can relate to it when I was doing the research for my book on chemist Harley Wilhelm. I found these little tiny newspapers in Iowa that were digitized, and I put in the years and just his name, and boom, I got articles from 1914 in his basketball scores. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention, just real quickly, one thing that Susan also was integral in getting, if you go to the History Center's website, they have several indexes for Post Bulletin, by personals, by the newspaper, and that's where people actually had gone through and indexed things. So people went through, and if somebody's name was in there, they actually put that name in there. So you can do some searching. So a lot of our early microfilm, you can actually search, it's a better search for the most part than just a regular, just looking through the keywords, but it's amazing. So we're very excited, looking forward at our past. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
That's a cool question. First, there's a fair amount of grant money out there right now to digitize resources.
Yes.
I don't know what kind of
Yeah, we looked at.
priority you might have, but
One thing, we want to actually talk to the Minnesota Historical Society and see kind of what their plans are. We would hate to put a whole bunch of grant money towards something that is already going to be done elsewhere. When we were originally looking at it, it's like, oh wow, this is all done.
the other things, have you thought about creating a generative chat bot with those resources that would simply search those resources? Or if you're looking for something.
We have
like,
not.
you know,
That is an incredible idea.
I mean, that's 20 minutes of work if you already have all the digital
Right.
resources there.
Yeah.
And the digitizing can be the hard part, though.
Right,
Right.
but it's saying, if he's already got
Right.
the digitized resources, then
Right.
it's
Yeah.
pretty easy as long as they're on one place in a server that you can say,
Right.
search this only.
Cool.
So-
We did receive a grant that Susan actually applied for before she retired from the Minnesota Historical Society for a digital microfilm reader. It was a second one, and we have heard multiple times from the company that it will soon be able
It will
to
create-
digitize entire reels of microfilm. So that is a game changer.
Right.
I got
And
some reels of
actually
microfilm
the-
for you when you're.
There's
does
a
that.
company that actually a lot of Iowa libraries use, so I wonder
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
county or library that you were searching and use this company, that they will either rent you the equipment and you provide the people power to make it work, or you can purchase-
Advantage Archive was the name of one of the vendors, and they actually would host it too. But it was more than $200,000 for our
Yeah,
collection.
wildly expensive, but the latest update that we are getting soon should
Yeah, there's.
do the quick digitization of
Yeah.
whole reels.
Which is part of it, which is the digitization part of it. We still have to have a platform that works well with it. So maybe we'll call up chatbot.
Translate them out of French.
Futuristically, the digitization is not impossible.
No, it is not.
It's out there.
Yes,
It's
and
coming.
the thing that's cool about it is that the way that it's digitized, it does do the optical character reading, the OCR. So it works better and worse depending on how good your original source was. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at really old newspapers. They were tiny, tiny print, and they don't always have a great copy of it. So there's limitations, but there's also opportunities. Just having OCR that exists is wonderful. It's really cool.
And I would say one of the challenges with doing any of those things is there are other challenges of just having, the desks staffed and being available to do technology help, and it's been really hard and challenging because, as Brian mentioned, we had Susan here who knew the history super well and had, that passion and just institutional knowledge, and those are the things that happen when folks do leave an organization, unfortunately, it is really hard to sometimes replace some of that institutional knowledge and ability to keep up on the history and fit it in with priorities of, just the day-to-day things that are happening in our reference area. So balancing those things. So digitization future, but within reason, I guess, is is that a good fair summary statement? Or-
In my lifetime. Any other questions? All right,
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much.
thank you. Okay, item 8D, youth representatives.
All right, yes, so we have our youth representatives selected. Eva Bowman is a 10th grader from Mayo High School. And Srioli Bhattacharya, I hopefully pronounced it correctly, from John Marshall Senior. And we've reached out and hopefully we'll have them at our next library board meeting. Big, huge thanks to our youth services folks, Heather Acero and Sarah Joint, for doing the process, getting an application up on our site and getting applications in. We had 11 folks, I believe, that applied, so very encouraging. The Rochester Youth Council, I always get the name wrong. The current, is it the, it's not the commission anymore, it's the Rochester Olmsted Youth Council. They were really great at sharing information about the opportunity as well and highlighted it. So very exciting that we will have some youth representatives at our next meeting.
Okay. Questions and answers. Well, let's go to item 9A, and then we can.
Yes, so I wanted to just share our JEDI audit implementation plan based on both the JEDI audit review. So we had the scan of the the environmental scan of the building, a review of our, in the next slide, a review of our, well, these are the two priorities that it speaks to. The next slide. We did the evaluation of our hiring practices. Couldn't find those words. And then also did a staff survey after the initial findings. So you'll remember Good Enough Consulting came and shared some of their findings, and you all got to see the full report. Staff did as well. We had a staff meeting, and folks were able to fill out an anonymous survey from a third-party vendor. So the responses that we got were very candid, very frank, some really good, insightful feedback. And again, handled by Good Enough Consulting. And they were really careful about going through the survey results and protecting anonymity for folks who filled out the survey. And there were some components that were even redacted because there was identifying information, but they did a really great job of sharing those findings with us. And so based on all of that, we have updated our DEI action plan, and the things that we are looking at and that we heard in the JEDI audit is really more desire for connection. We have folks that really just want to get to know each other, across divisions, and really a sense of folks wanting to make those connections here at work. We also had a recommendation for a mentorship program that used to exist. So Jeremiah will be starting that before the end of the year. And we are working on a hiring best practices timeline and checklist that will help make the hiring process similar across the organization, and really have that documented really well so it's nice and easy to follow. Another piece that we've been working on is internally is our SharePoint intranet site, which will replace a very outdated wiki. That is moving along. It's been really a very large project, but we're getting close. We will make the end of the year deadline for sure. There was a recommendation for stay interviews and exit interviews, so we're working with HR on how that could be implemented. And then one thing is, suggestion was providing a feedback loop. And we've had, I've had an Ask Me anonymous form for teammates across. Anybody in the library can fill that out anonymously if they have a question that they don't feel comfortable asking their supervisor or don't feel comfortable asking me. And there was a recommendation of having those for every manager that we have. So all of our administrative team now have that right in their signature for internal emails going out to the team, which has been great. In the other pieces of our DEI plan, we have updated offering more opportunities for non-supervisory staff. We're gonna flush this out a little bit more so that we can have non-supervisors on hiring teams. And we'll be working on getting more representation from across the organization. Often it's been managers and supervisors that are part of those hiring teams and not everyone across the organization. The next slide, another piece that we have updated, these are all repeat goals that we have that weren't changed based on the JEDI audit, but the next slide, here are some of the things that aren't in our DEI plan, our longer term plan, but some of these shorter wins, I guess, that we can look at. And one, for example, was getting sensory kits. So one of our teammates has already done a literature review. We will be working on actually creating an accessibility team, an internal team of teammates from across the library to talk about different ways that we can improve the experience here at the library, whether it's through having sensory kits, looking at some of the layouts of our aisles, other accessibility topics that we'll be having this core group of folks work on. And we are very lucky that we will be able to tap into the expertise of Jacob Metz, who has been part of our library study team as well. He is a Harvard Fellow right now, here for just 2 years, working on accessibility. And so some of the things he's already been able to help inform us on. Some of the other things are, we've created pronoun pins for all staff to have. We have these in our staff area. If library board members also want them, I highly encourage you to get one. We can get one for you. Some other things like creating step stool parking. That was a recommendation, to make sure that the step stools that are in the stacks get put back into place so that they're not obstructing customers or staff from getting up and down the aisles. So that was a nice quick one that we were able to make right now. Yeah, so or even tripping over. And then the next slide, we had some recommendations that we will not be implementing, and we shared with staff why we wouldn't be implementing. One was offering Narcan. There were some recommendations for offering it in the library. There's been some feedback from our city safety representative about instead of having that as a staff responsibility, focusing on calling 911. We do have one position in the library, and that's Brandon's position, where it is actually part of appropriately being part of his position and in the future responsibility. But there were also some teammates that were worried about having that pressure, even if it was optional, feeling like there was that pressure to have that be a responsibility at a time when there are a lot of responsibilities at the desk. And then here are some of the other suggestions. The updating the inclusivity statement is one that we're not doing, and it's not because we don't believe in having an inclusivity statement, but we are part of the city organization, and we use the city's organizational DEI statement that was built with cross-representation from throughout the city, from all departments. And then any questions on those or the ones before that, those recommendations? We hosted a staff meeting last month to talk about the JEDI audit plan. This again is going to be one of the priorities that Kim and Perna and I have. We have a lot of tasks to be working on. We do have teammates that are participating right now in Cultural Humility 2.0. Good Enough Consulting is the same group that was providing that training, and they're doing that again. Over the course of 6 years, we should be able to get through everyone in the city, and that's how long it takes to get in cohorts through. It is a 6-month training, a very fantastic, the original one, but Cultural Humility. For folks who have done the original training, this is a second part of instead of a broad overview of cultural humility, these are topical trainings that folks are participating in. And then we'll continue to be updating you on our progress as we make some improvements. So, any questions? That's a lot. content-heavy meeting.
Any questions on anything else that's come before? No? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.